Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. This is another lovely episode of the Friday Ramblings, and it is our Christmas episode. Now, we're not just going to talk about Christmas in itself because the Root Productions is a home of entertainment, so we're going to talk about some Christmas entertainment. Specifically, my favorite Christmas movie. At least my favorite debatably Christmas movie. Now, if you looked at that thumbnail, instead of just rapid clicking because you're so eager to hear my voice, you know I am not talking about Die Hard. Because, while I do have all the respect in the world for Bruce Willis, in my opinion, if Die Hard is a Christmas movie, then this movie is even more so a Christmas movie. And this movie is a better movie than Die Hard. I am talking about Gremlins. Gremlins is the iconic movie by Joe Dante, and who directed it, written by Chris Columbus, and starring Zach Galligan, Phoebe Cates-Witt, Axton Polly Holiday, Francis Lee McCain, and Howie Mandel as the voice of Gizmo, along with a few other wonderful characters. Music by Jerry Goldsmith. All wonderful things, and of course produced by Amblin Entertainment, which is owned by Steven Spielberg. We're going to get into a little bit back behind the scenes quick trivia for you first before we get into the movie itself and its awesomeness. Gremlins came out in 1984 and is considered a comedy horror film. All good things. This is where it gets fun, though, because the movie, being Christmas themed in that it takes place in the days before and the day of Christmas, and involves the giving of Christmas presents to set up the plot, and it being done by Spielberg, and having a little fuzzy guy in the trailers. People thought the movie was a little child friendlier than it was when it first theatrically aired. Despite the fact that it does actually have some quite violent and terrifying sequences balanced out by the comedy. And the comedy itself being a good chunk of dark comedy. This means that, alongside another film that Steven Spielberg had a bit of a hand in, Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, these two films were the major push behind Spielberg's push to the MPAA to alter its rating systems to create the new PG-13 rating. Now, of course, I've already gone in depth in previous video about the MPAA rating and the gradual evolution of it to what we know today. And that is all well and good. Please watch that video if you want more details. But that alone helps put Gremlins in cinema history. It was one of a handful of films that came out in the early 80s that pushed to have the PG-13 rating established because it was too frightening for PG, but it wasn't quite graphic enough for R. We needed an in-between layer. Because PG was way over here, R was way over here, we need something right about here. But regardless of that, let's keep it simple from here on out and focus on this movie in and of itself. And that is good times. Now, the base idea of the Gremlins is based on folklore that is often traced back to the British Royal Air Force during World War II, though there is some ideas of the base Gremlins concept existing. That was when it became more widespread throughout the Western world, specifically in the variant of the Gremlins being mischievous creatures that like to mess with humans, especially by getting involved with their machinery and technology. Specifically, The idea is that a lot of planes during World War II in the British Royal Air Force would suffer mechanical faults and failures, even though they were checked over and said to be operating perfectly fine. Thus, the British pilots began saying that the planes were being sabotaged by supernatural creatures called Gremlins, who lived to do that. This movie takes that base idea and gives it a full push by mixing in a little bit of culture clashing. We're not taking place in Britain, we're taking place in America, but we are sticking to the heart of the legend, which is mischievous creatures that operate on their own set of rules, messing around with humanity, and especially any devices they can get their hands on. Now that we've laid that out, let's get into the plot in and of itself. Struggling inventor Randall Peltzer seeks a Christmas present for his grown son, Billy, that is truly unique. While out on one of his business trips, he checks out Chinatown, where after a couple failures in shops, is guided by a young man to the young man's grandfather's shop. Initially, nothing really strikes his fancy. He, in fact, being a businessman and on a business trip, technically, tries to sell one of his inventions, the bathroom buddy, to the old man running the shop before he encounters in the corner, sitting in a lovely little box, a small furry creature who is singing a song, well, technically humming it, to itself to pass the time. Recognizing it as the kind of thing that he has never seen before, and he guarantees nobody else in his small town of Kingston Falls has ever seen before, the man negotiates to buy the Mogwai from the old man, who refuses to sell it, saying that the Mogwai is not for sale, as it takes a lot of responsibility to raise properly. After Mr. Peltzer leaves, the grandson tells him not to listen to his grandfather, that they need the money that is being offered, and the grandson, in fact, sells the Mogwai behind Grandpa's back. Important plot point to remember later, folks. Thus, a couple days later, we cut to Kingston Falls, where after seeing a day in the life of Billy Peltzer, which includes being harassed by local greedy, make Scrooge McDuck look, or excuse me, Ebenezer Scrooge, bloop, 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 get my Scrooges mixed, kind of greedy old lady that makes Ebenezer Scrooge pre-ghostly visit look like a saint. And that's tricky, let me tell you. Who is officially known as Mrs. Deagle. And spending some time, almost but not quite, getting a date with the small town lovely Kate, played by the awesome Phoebe Cates, and butting heads with bank junior president Gerald, played by the awesome Judge Reinhold, who was a long time, stalwart of this channel. We do always appreciate when Mr. Reinhold shows up for a supporting role, or even a starring role. We like it as a judge. We do like the Judge Reinhold. Billy comes home to find his father offering him an early Christmas present. Billy unwraps his present and meets the Mogwai. This is where we get the opening foreshadowings of the horror that is to come, aside from the horror that is Mrs. Deagle. And that is that Papa Peltzer lays out the 3 rules of Mogwai. That is, never get them wet, never feed them after midnight, and no matter what, the biggest rule of all, the one you can never, ever, ever even think about disobeying, never expose them to sunlight. Even strong artificial light pains them. Sunlight will kill them. They are truly nocturnal creatures. Billy, being an adult and having shown a sense of responsibility, says he can roll with this and starts very quickly bonding with his Mogwai, who has been christened Gizmo. Gizmo! Now, since this is again a movie made in the early 80s, it should be noted that Gizmo is a physical special effect. He is, in many scenes, achieved through puppeteering. He is a puppet. You know, doop 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 doop. This is not a CGI creature. Not somebody in like motion capture or anything like that. This, in a lot of ways, I feel helps the tone of the movie because, look, I get a lot of people now do the whole motion capture CGI thing, but frankly, I've always preferred live action creatures, whether puppets, puppets, robots like the shark from Jaws, or just plain guys in a lot of suits and makeup. I feel like, and Gremlins is a great reflection of this, when you have something physically in front of you to interact with, especially something that looks like the final product, because again, guys in motion capture suits don't always, they try to have a vague similarity, but it's still not going to be the final product because it's CGI touching up. But I feel it just helps the actors get more into that world and thus draw you into that world. So, yes, awesome that Gizmo is something that is physically there, that is moving on its own, that looks like to the actors during filming like what we see on the screen. Little side rant, but still, we're going to put it out there. Now, as I said, there is foreshadowing, and I don't want to do a huge scene-by-scene breakdown because we here at Roulette Productions don't believe in super spoilers. We want you to watch these movies for yourself. We want you to see them with a sense of curiosity and anticipation because you don't know everything that's going to happen. In fact, it's a lot like Christmas that way. You look forward to Christmas because you don't know what's in those presents. They're wrapped up. You have a sense of what some of them might be because of the size of the box and because of what you asked for, but you're not 100% sure. That's how we like it to be when you watch these movies we talk about. Like opening up a Christmas present. And that whole sense of curiosity and not sure what's going on is what happens in this movie when the rules start getting broken. Again, skipping over the specifics so you can enjoy the scenes as they happen, as you should enjoy them, not being 100% sure. The first rule broken is the water rule. It is found out that when Mogwais get wet, water makes them multiply. The more water, the more Mogwais that are spawned. Several Mogwai are spawned by Gizmo, but unlike Gizmo, these Mogwais tend to be more mischievous, if not downright wicked. At one point, they attempt to terrorize, if not kill, the family dog, and continue to basically prefer hanging around each other in their tight-knit little gang than interacting with the other humans in the house. This leads to the breaking of the second rule. In a little bit of mischief, they manage to manipulate Billy into feeding them after midnight. This causes the second revelation that feeding them after midnight triggers a pupa stage, like a butterfly going into a cocoon, except these cocoons are much larger because Mogwai already, about good size, are bigger than caterpillars and are growing into something a little bit larger inside their cocoons. Slimy, gross, almost alien-looking cocoons. This starts the major shift in the tone of the movie. Yes, the Mogwai gang had been rude and crude and potentially dangerous before, but now, this metamorphosis and the wonderfully designed cocoons, seriously. I want to say Rick Baker did the effects on this one. Let me see. Let's see. Oh yeah, let's see. A lot of the puppets and mechanics were designed by Chris Wallace. So, there you go. Credit to him. We'll, But, yes, the cocoons are, in and of themselves, creepy looking and hint at the horrors to come. A couple days later, when Mama Peltzer is the only one home, they hatch. Should also be noted that in between that one of the Mogwais was left with the local science teacher, and himself conspired to get an after midnight snack, so had his own cocoon. He hatched at the same time as the ones at home did, and thus, from the get-go, we had terror in multiple locations, because now the Mogwai were gremlins. Going from cute mammals to creepy reptilians, the gremlins were much more violent, much more apt to indulge their most primal needs, which is food and destruction. We see the first throwbacks to the British legend. Again, I am kind of skipping around a bit because there's a lot of this movie I don't want to get into, but there's a supporting character, one of the local neighbors called Mr. Futterman, who actually earlier in the movie, before the cocoonings, recites the basic legend of the Gremlins from World War II, thus making a nice little meta joke where he discusses the legend that inspired the movie. This helps provide a good foreshadowing, though, of the gremlins we see in the movie and their fascination with various machines and tools, some of which they use to kill the various citizens of Kingston Falls, including the science teacher. And they try to take out Mama Peltzer, but hey, she is a little tougher and a little, more ready to deal with threats than some. Unfortunately, when all is said and done, no matter what the attempts of the Peltzer family is, one gremlin, the leader, the infamous white mohawked Stripe, manages to escape Billy, who eventually chases him to the YMCA. This is where everything goes to absolute chaos as Stripe uses the YMCA swimming pool to create an instant army. Thus, gremlins flood the town and create chaos and murder all over the place. Again, we're not going to get into too many specifics, but the kills are creative and show the kind of mischievous, wicked fun that we would later get from horror icons like Freddy Krueger in some of his Nightmare on Elm Street movies. Not as much reality bending, but a lot of that same sense of, hey, we're not just running up and stabbing people, we are suckering them into ambushes, we are showing a sense of true pleasure and enjoyment in what we do with an artistic flair. As well as just plain imitating human behavior. There's a famous scene of the Gremlins assaulting Christmas carolers and then imitating the caroling behavior as a distraction. All I'm going to say is this, folks. Well, 90% of what the Gremlins do is attack innocents. They do take out Mrs. Deagle, who is as much a villain as anything the Gremlins do. And it is one of the most fun and intelligently set up and executed kills in the movie, highlighting the fact that the Gremlins are not base creatures by design. They have the ability to strategize. They have the ability to create tactics in their war against humanity. Which isn't even really a war, it's just they just love indulging in hurting other people. It comes off really more as just an unfocused, we live to hurt other things mindset, which keeps them firmly in that category of crazy critters and creature features, and not, hey, we're just psychotic humans that you would get in later decades and even previous decades in other subsets of horror. Still, the Gremlins also have some fun as they take over a bar and just plain party with each other in another famous sequence. Highly recommended. But it all leads to a big finale. Again, not going to go into super details except to say that Billy and Kate, along with a little help from Gizmo, were able to take out the majority of the Gremlins all at once in a nice pyromaniacal kill that would make any modern action movie proud. But proving that he is the devious leader of the army, Stripe managed to survive and goes on a one-on-one war with Billy, even uttering his name in disdain and anger. Their fight across a retail store highlights, once again, the Gremlins' fascination with various tools, as Stripe uses crossbows and got little circular saw blades and other makeshift weaponry to terrorize and attempted kill Billy once and for all. But when it's all said and done, good prevails and the Christmas spirit survives. Still in classic, this is a horror movie at its core. We get, after the old Chinese man comes to take Gizmo back and chastise the Peltzers for unleashing all this chaos by not respecting nature and its rules. Nice little Christmas time moral about not letting, it all be about having things, machines and tools, and hiding behind them from the world. We get the closing narration where it's pointed out nobody ever said Gizmo was the only Mogwai left in the world. And thus, even for the viewers at home, something weird happens in your house. Your refrigerator starts acting up. The lights turn off for no reason. You gotta be prepared. You got to check what's going on with a weapon in hand, because it might not be a fluke. You might have a gremlin in your house. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is your review of Gremlins. As I said, the movie takes place throughout Christmas, and the entire plot is set off by the idea of seeking the ultimate Christmas present. So, how can this not be a Christmas movie? And since it is, you should put it in your yearly watch list alongside all your other favorite Christmas movies. Now, there was a sequel, but we're going to discuss that another time, because it is an entirely different beast in and of itself. We'll get to that sometime in 2024. Still, for now, I want everybody to enjoy your Christmas, or your Hanukkah, or your Kwanzaa, or any other holiday you celebrate during this winter time, because we here at Roulette Productions appreciate every viewer, every view, and the people behind it. So, more than ever, stay happy, stay healthy, and I'll see you in 7. Bye-bye, folks.